Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So behind me is a 2016 BMW X1. This one is an all-wheel drive model, and today we're going to be replacing the front pads and rotors. Now before we go ahead and begin, guys, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below, smash that like button because it helps the channel out. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started on doing these brakes today. So where you're going to want to begin on this, guys, is pretty simple. When you have your wheel off, what I like to do is go ahead and turn it depending on whichever side your caliper is located on, so that way it gives you more clear access and room to work back here. Now I'm going to move the camera over, but first I have to adjust my lighting, so just so I can show you guys what we're going to be doing here first. Now you can start on this any number of ways. I just like doing it this way just to get it out of the way. Now our brake pad wear sensor is right here in the middle. This one's already been hit and damaged, basically it wore down. So what I like to do is take something, usually a knife or a flathead, and just see if I can just poke it out of its little hole. Now sometimes that doesn't work, and if you're not lazy like I am, walk over to my toolbox here and just grab some pliers, and you should be able to go ahead and grab it out of there just like that. Now a lot of you that have done BMWs in the past, you'll see and you'll know that this is worn out right there. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick it up. I should probably give you guys a nice little zoom in here if I'm able to, but you can see right then and there the sensor has worn off onto the rotor. We're going to be replacing that. It's no longer viable for our purposes because it'll just keep the light on. Now the next step that I like to do is go ahead and remove your dust boot cover on your nipple and just get that out of the way. And for right now, we're just going to leave this hanging here. We just wanted to clean up our caliper area. We're going to be replacing the sensor a little bit later. So where we're going to begin now is go ahead and unbolt our caliper. So let me grab my tools and I'll show you guys how we do that. Alright guys, so we are positioned behind our caliper. Now we are going to be removing our lower and upper brake caliper bolts. What these do is they hold the caliper onto the bracket. It's really simple, really easy to remove these. What tends to happen a lot, and I'll show you really quickly, in here you guys will see it's like a bolt cutout. Sometimes if you go ahead and take your wrench and remove it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the case on this one, you will notice that it likes to spin in one. So what you're going to have to do is grab something to fit in here and hold that to keep that from spinning. Now I'm going to set you guys down in this position right there. I use this little Nipex wrench. It's adjustable. I find that it fits really nicely in here just like that. And I'm going to hold one end as I go ahead and I unbolt my bolts here. Now you're going to do this for the top and the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and get these two bolts off and I'll be right back with you guys. Now that we got our caliper retaining bolts off, this is what they look like. Pretty easy, not really too bad to remove. It's standard just like everything that's out there. The next thing that you're going to want to do, and I try to do this before I take off my caliper, is I'm going to take a screwdriver and I'm going to try to compress this caliper piston inward a little bit. The main reason why is it makes it a lot easier for me to take it off if I decompress it prior. So we got the pressure off of it, and what we should be able to do is go ahead and take off our caliper just like this. Typically you want to hang these out of the way. What I'm going to do on ours is support it up here on top of the knuckle assembly and just let it rest. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to get my brake pads out of here. What I find typically on these is that they're not super worn out, but you can see one pad is more chewed up than the other one. This one probably got stuck here at some point, took out the sensor, and got premature brake life. And that seems to be the case on this one. Now both of these pads are pretty much seized in here. I'm assuming these are never serviced brake pads where no one's ever opened them up and cleaned them up. But you guys can tell here, there's the outboard versus the inboard. Quite a big difference. So the inboard pad was jamming up, and that's the reason why we're here doing the brakes. Plus there's a lot of grooving on the inside here. You can tell this brake pad nice and flat. That's the outside one. The inside one that got jammed up, you can see it's nice and riddled with little lines and scored up. Same thing with the rotor in the back side. Now that we got our brake pads off, we are positioned behind the caliper bracket. You guys can see the rotor is pretty scored up here, reflects the surface that was on our inboard pad. The next step is going to be to remove the bracket bolt. So we have one down here and one up here. These are 18 millimeter. I'm going to be using my Milwaukee Impact to get them off. Pretty simple. You just go on here and work it off. Now it's going to be kind of loud, so I'm going to go ahead and cut to the next clip, but we're just going to be removing these two. So we loosened our bolts. I left the top one in here just to show you guys a couple threads. We're going to unthread it. And make sure you're holding your caliper bracket with one hand. And once you unthread it all the way, your caliper bracket just slides off just like that. And now we have a nice clear pathway to our rotor for removal. To remove the rotor, I'm going to position you guys in the front, show you a screw that we have to take off, and we will be taking off our rotor. Now what we're going to do is remove our retaining screw. Your vehicle, depending on who worked on it last, may or may not have it. A lot of mechanics take these off and don't put them back. However, I do. It's very important on the European cars, especially ones that are studless like this BMW. This keeps the rotor in place, so when you're taking your wheel on and off, these are all aligned and nothing is misaligned. Sometimes if you're missing this, it doesn't really make a difference, except that when you take your tire on and off, your rotor may be shifted and not lining up with the designated screw holes, and that can sometimes be annoying. Now what I'm going to do is take a size 6 Allen on my impact tool. I find that these can be on here pretty stubbornly, and we are just going to strike it with our hammer and see if we can break this loose. Now don't be surprised if they're in there kind of stiff. Mine's moving, it's just been in there for a long time. I'm going to trade my impact with the hammer for my little Milwaukee driver gun. And we are going to go ahead and take it off. The reason why it was giving me difficulty coming off, if you notice, it has like a little shank area here, or a collar. That area will build up a little rust on the inside there, and it's super tight, and sometimes it's difficult to get off. That's why it took a couple hits. Now that we have that off, just for safety purposes, nothing is holding the rotor on, and this thing is pretty stuck on there due to rust. What I'm going to do is take a lug nut, or lug stud, whatever you prefer to call these. We're going to put it on there, and then we are going to take our hammer and we are going to hit our rotor to get it off. Now if you're saving the rotor but you need to take it off, you want to hit on the inside top hat area, which would be right here. In this case, we got new rotors. We don't really need to save this. I'm going to hit it right here. It makes it a lot easier. So you just give it one strike, and just like that, you saw it can be a little violent. What winds up happening is you'll release your rotor. If you don't have the screw in here holding it on, that's going to fall and hit you either on your legs or face or wherever it can go. So always make sure you install one of these before you hit it with a hammer. It helps get it off a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Now I apologize for the lighting. My lights moved when I hit the rotor. I gotta reposition them, but you unscrew it and then you can take your rotor off, and now we have access to our hub. Now that we got access to our hub, what we're going to do is clean up these surface areas. I use a angle grinder and a prep pad. I'm going to go in here and just clean up this area, make it nice and clean, make sure there's no rust buildup or anything that will stick up on the rotor. Once we get that cleaned up, I'll bring you guys back in and show you guys the rotor install. So we are at our bench and we are going to be prepping our bracket. Now where I like to begin on these, like always, is I'm going to take my pins out. And I like to just clean off the old grease, and I do this one at a time, guys. You don't really, have to just pull it all disassembled and then not know where anything goes. But what we're going to do is go ahead and add our new grease. Now, we use a specific brake grease. This stuff is a silicone base, works really good on brake systems. We're going to go ahead and take off our other pin here, and these just slide right off. Real simple, real easy. And what we're going to do is go ahead and give it a generous application of grease. Don't just put any type of grease in here, guys. I've seen people try to use wheel bearing grease. It doesn't work out that well. That'll eventually seize up your brakes. Now, after I install my pins, what I'm going to do is pull back on the boot and push down. And I'm going to do this on both of them here. What that allows to do is push the air down so that way this isn't pushing up. Because if you try to put this in there and it's constantly pushing upwards pressure on you, you're going to wind up replacing your brakes sooner than you think, because you're going to wind up having them contacted in the on position. Now that we service that portion of it, what I'm going to do, and this method can vary, guys. If you have a sandblaster cabinet, that would be the best thing to clean up these tangs. But what we got to do is get in here and clean up. I use my wire brush. Typically, I'll just take it and get in there and clean up my areas really good. If I have to, I'll use my file or angle grinder that you guys saw me using on the hub to get into the fine little corners. But I find these BMWs, they don't really have too much of an issue. Wire brush usually works out pretty good. So I'm going to get in here, clean these areas up, and then after I do that, I'm going to bring you guys back in and we're going to grease up our bracket. Now that we've cleaned up our bracket, what I'm going to do is take my grease and we are going to be, I guess you can say, a little conservative. You don't want to just globber it in these spaces. You want to get enough but also not overdo it. So you don't want to be as generous as you were with the pins. Be a little mindful, because in this area you can easily get it on your brake pads if you overdo it, which you definitely don't want to do. So we're going to go ahead and apply this to our little pad holder areas here, and I forgot to do this portion on it. So now that we have that, one thing that you might run into is you may get grease on the inside where the brake pad will ride. What I do with this is I'll just bring in a rag afterwards and just clean up our areas here in case we got any overlap. And that is our bracket prepped. Real simple and easy. Wire brush method works good, but if you have a sandblasting cabinet or something that can get in there like a wire brush on a drill, definitely do that. But again, these don't need too much prep. You just want to get a majority of the dust and everything that's in there and whatever rust buildup is there. You know, wire brush or anything with a brush will pretty much work out good. So now that we have this prep, we're going to go back to the car and reinstall it. Now we are behind our new rotor, as you guys see, nice and clean. And what we're going to do is take our caliper bracket and just slide it into place. It's that simple. And then we are going to take our hardware and just sneak it in here, just like that. And you want to start hand threading it. Always make sure you got a couple threads started on these, because if you don't, you can easily strip out your bracket. And that means you're going to be buying a bracket, and these can be kind of expensive if you can even find them separately. Sometimes you'll have to buy them with a new caliper. Now let me adjust my lighting here so you guys can see better. We got our bolts hand started. They're looking beautiful. Now what I typically do is I'm just going to use my gun to gun them on, and then I'll torque them. As you guys see, I'm not using my gun to torque these on. I'm just using it to tighten them. Now I'm going to go ahead and get those torqued on nice and tight, and I'll bring you guys back and we will be prepping our caliper and installing our pads next. Now it's time to prep our caliper, so we are going to grab it and we are going to lay it right up top here. And the first step in this is to compress your piston. Now I have this helpful piston pusher tool. You just line it up in there. Let's get our light out of the way. And what you're going to do is just compress the piston inward nice and slow. If you find that these pistons are very difficult and they're not going in smoothly like this one is, what you will probably wind up needing to do is replace your caliper, because it could be damaged. So now that we have that out and our piston is pushed back in, our caliper prep is pretty much done except for just a little bit of greasing. Now what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to grease the inside of these fingers and also our piston area. Let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll grab the camera and show you guys, just because it's a very difficult and awkward angle to get into. My main thing on this, like I always say in every video, is you want to put grease wherever you have two metal surfaces contacting each other. It helps cushion it and less chances of noise. And just to show you guys an example of what I did there, you guys can see we got grease all over our piston, and if we flip it over, inside of those tangs. You don't gotta go nuts here and, you know, just go to town with the grease. Be very, you know, liberal, but also, you know, not a whole bunch. Don't globber it. That's probably the best way to put it. Now it's time to install our brake pads. I've already gone ahead and installed the inboard pad. It's going to be the same process for the outboard one, and I will be showing you guys on this one. It's just really hard to get the camera in there, but it's easy on the outside. That's why I chose to do it this way. Now to show you one key difference, this is a brake pad set that'll typically go on the front. Now if you guys notice, one has a cutout here and you can fully see my finger from it. The other one has a cutout, but it has this shield that goes over it. Typically the way I install these is the shield in the inboard position and the one that's more cut out and open in the outboard one. That's how these cars originally come off with it, and if you pay attention to the old set of brake pads, if you guys will notice, the one that has the piston mark on there also has the shield facing on it. I believe it's there to protect the sensor, and then the outboard one, as you guys can see, is just flat out open. So that's how we're going to be reinstalling them. Always pay attention to how you take them off, because sometimes you can install stuff backwards without even noticing it. So just be mindful. Now to install our brake pads, we're going to be doing a nice range of motion. Let me see if I can get some lighting on here and make it a little bit nicer. So you're going to want to take your brake pad, and as you're going to be putting it in your tabs, you want to be pushing it towards the back and then also inward. It's kind of a weird movement, but let me show you guys how it's done. First, you got to line it up, and let me make sure here because the camera is blocking my view. And what I'm going to be doing is pushing backwards as I push inward. So it's kind of like an L approach in a way. So you want to go in or back and then in is the best way to put it. And that's basically because you got to overcome the spring pressure, and you obviously have to push it onto the bracket. And it's just that simple, guys. If they fight you and they don't go in nicely, chances are you may have not cleaned your bracket correctly. They should go on there pretty effortlessly. Now, one check to do is just grab your pad and move it. You guys can see nice and free. If your brake pad doesn't move nice and freely in there, you got to clean it up. Now these don't really move that free either way, because you guys notice here it has like a retention spring. Let me get the light on it. You notice right there that spring is always holding pressure on it, so these don't really rock back and forth that easily on there, but just be mindful that they should still be movable. When you come up here and you grab them, they should still move. If they don't, then that means they're too tight. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and take our caliper and install it. Let me zoom you guys out a little bit because it's really difficult to show this with the camera really up close. Now we already prepped our caliper, got everything perfect. All we're going to do is grab it and make sure that it's not wound up on itself. Sometimes you got to be careful with the brake line, because if you twist it too many times, you got to make sure it falls back in its relaxed position. So always pay attention to your hose. Make sure that there's nothing loose on there. Now we are going to be taking our bracket bolts that we took off on the back. You guys saw me do this earlier, and what we're going to do is go ahead and hand thread them on there to hold our caliper and keep it from falling off. Always hand thread. Don't just rely on it not being threaded and then taking your gun or whatever tool you're using and forcing it in there, because you will strip it out. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that, and what we're going to do next is replace our brake pad wear sensor that's located in the back there that we took off earlier. Alright, so it's time to replace our brake pad wear sensor. I'm going to give you guys a general overview on this, and then what I'm going to do is get it done with the camera zoomed out, because I can't possibly have the camera here and work on it at the same time. So the way this is going to work is this pulls off this bracket. It's just pressure fit. You just slide it out going this way, and if you follow your wires, they will lead right up here into this junction. It's right about here where you want to access. Now BMW puts it under this cover. What you have to do, and what I generally do, is remove this 8mm bolt right here. You have a clip in there, and I pull back on it, and I can usually see from underneath in this spot and pull it out and reinstall the new connector. It seems a little bit difficult, and to be honest with you, I'm surprised they made it this way. Typically, you have a cutout or the connector is just sitting somewhere, but BMW decided to go differently on it. And just to show you guys what it looks like, so this is the connector that we are going to be looking for to disconnect. Typically, you'll just have a little push collar and it'll release. If you follow that wire, it goes to our little block here. You guys can see this is just a push in and push out. That would be this portion right there. And then we have our brake pad wear sensor. So we are going to go ahead and remove our 8mm. That's where I'm going to start on this. And I do apologize, guys. This is such a cruddy location where they put this that it's hard for me to get in there and show you guys with the camera. Next thing I'm going to do is take my clip pliers here, and we should be able to remove our clip. Now I gotta see what style this is, because sometimes BMW likes to switch these up. I'm just gonna probably use my knife. Let's see. Alright, so it's just a center pull style where you yank the center out of it and it should release. So it looks like we got that loose. Let me come on the other side and just see if it'll release. Now to show you guys this clip, it's one of these. You pull the center out, and once you pull the center out, it pulls the rod out and it releases the fingers. Typically you'll take this tool, get in there like so, and pull down on it. Or what I like to do, sometimes this works too, you take your pocket knife, you just get in there and you start working it and then just kind of pull it out. I even have this little cutout on my knife that broke that it works really well. You slide it underneath there and you just start pulling on it. You guys can see it's perfectly made for it. Now that wasn't my knife, that was custom made there. It broke on me and I just shaped it in that way and it happened to work. So it's just coincidence. What I'm going to do here, and again, you want to be careful. This can be kind of brittle, and of course it is. And I'm probably going to block the camera. So I'm going to position you guys here really quickly, because I got to get in this thing. And I'm probably going to block the camera right now with my head. And let's see which one it is here, because we have two wires that go up here. One of them is for the ABS speed sensor. The other one is our brake wear sensor. So let's see here. Alright, I was able to get it out of its holder. Now we are going to disconnect our connector, and then what I should be able to do is go ahead and just pull it out. And just like that, it came out. And again, you guys aren't seeing most of this. BMW did it in a very unique way. So now I'm gonna go ahead and insert my holder here in the center, and then we are going to follow our wire up here, clip it on our little holder. Man, these things are so stiff sometimes, guys. You really gotta push into them. And then what I'm gonna do is take our connector. Always make sure there's no debris when you go to install these. Like currently right now, it's winter here in Chicago, and there's a lot of salt and stuff all over here. You want to make sure you don't get that inside of there. So let me position you guys here now. Hopefully you guys, you'll see me doing something, but you won't actually see the whole process on this, unfortunately. But it's real simple, guys. It's almost second nature. Once you open it up and you get in here and you can see it, it's really quick and easy. I would normally remove the whole fender liner, but for the sake of time here, this customer wants to pick up this car today, and it's about 4 o'clock and I still have the other side to do. So time doesn't permit, unfortunately. So we got our connector and everything plugged in. So we should be able to go ahead and screw our 8mm back in. And once we do that, we are going to take our clip, reinstall that as well. And then what we're going to do, I forgot to do it here, so let me see if I could get in there. I got to remove my 8mm again. I forgot to set the wire in a little wire holder. So make sure it's clipped in here. Just like that. Beautiful. It's I always got to make sure everything is clipped in, because sometimes you can stress out a wire if it's not in its proper holder. and go ahead and screw it in. And to give you guys a little rundown, it's what it looks like. Everything is set. So our connector's up here. You kind of put your finger and pull it out. We had this little wire holder right there. That's what I forgot to clip in. Another wire holder here. And if you follow it back, we got our main holder right here. Again, these just pull off and push on. They're real quick and easy. Now I'm going to get some better lighting, and I'm going to show you guys how we installed it in our brake pad. That's how easy it is to do front brakes and rotors on a 2016 BMW X1, guys. It's quick, simple, and easy. The hardest part of this job is the wiring, I'd say, but even that is still pretty easy in retrospect. But hopefully this video helps you guys out. I know towards the end I didn't really show too great when it came to connecting the wiring, simply because it's currently 4 o'clock, almost 4:15 here, and this car needs to be picked up at 5, and I still got the passenger side to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that done, and you know, get this thing rolling on out of here, guys. So hopefully this video helps you guys out. Please comment, like, and subscribe, because it definitely helps the channel grow. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.